Hello and welcome back to another Parry This alternate history battle. Today we are tackling possibly one of the most important naval engagements of all time, the Battle of Actium. This battle, fought between two contenders for the Roman imperial throne, before that was even a thing, determined who would be Rome's first emperor. This ancient clash of titans, fought in the Mediterranean Sea, is getting a little changed today. Instead of Mark Antony's giant ancient fleet, Octavius will be facing a small expeditionary naval force from the Napoleonic-era under the command of Ammiraglio Francesco Caracciolo. So, as always, I want to just start with an accurate summary of the real-life historical Battle of Actium, so any of you out there who may not be experts on the topic will know what the hell I'm talking about later in this video. On September 2nd, 31 BC, one of the most consequential naval battles in ancient history took place off the western coast of Greece, near the promontory of Actium. This clash was far more than just a confrontation of ships. It was a pivotal moment that determined the fate of Rome and reshaped the ancient world. On one side stood Octavian, the future first emperor of Rome, and on the other, the forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt. Both commanders knew that the stakes were monumental. Control of Rome, the Mediterranean, and its vast resources hung in the balance. Octavian, who would later be known as Augustus, led a highly disciplined and tactically superior force. Though young, he had already proven himself a shrewd and determined leader. His fleet, commanded by his trusted admiral, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, numbered around 400 ships. Most of these were quadraremes and triremes, swift and maneuverable vessels designed for ramming and boarding enemy ships. Agrippa, a brilliant naval strategist, had spent months cutting off Antony's supply lines, executing a naval blockade that starved Antony and Cleopatra's forces of reinforcements. Octavian's 80,000 soldiers and sailors were experienced veterans well prepared for the coming engagement. Mark Antony and Cleopatra, on the other hand, had assembled a fleet of approximately 500 ships, a mix of Roman and Egyptian vessels. Cleopatra's ships were larger and heavier than Octavian's, including several quinqueremes, massive five-oared vessels with thick hulls, designed more for power than for speed. Though formidable, these ships were far less maneuverable, a crucial factor in naval warfare at the time. Antony's fleet, manned by roughly 60,000 soldiers and sailors, was still significant in size and strength, but morale was waning. Desertions were becoming more frequent as the reality of Octavian's blockade set in, and the loyalty of Antony's men was now beginning to fracture. As dawn broke on the day of battle, Antony knew he needed to break through Octavian's blockade. His fleet was trapped in the Gulf of Ambracia, and the only way out was to force a path through Octavian's waiting ships. Antony's strategy was straightforward, a direct confrontation, hoping to break the blockade and potentially regroup with his forces on land. Cleopatra's fleet was positioned behind Antony's main force, ready to support or to retreat depending on how the battle unfolded. Octavian's fleet, under Agrippa's command, was strategically positioned to prevent Antony's escape. Agrippa had chosen a crescent-shaped formation that would allow his faster ships to encircle Antony's bulkier vessels. Octavian ships were smaller but quicker, and his disciplined marines were prepared for close-quarters combat. The two fleets met in a brutal clash. Antony's heavier ships attempted to ram and crush Octavian's vessels, using their size and weight to their advantage. For a moment, it seemed like Antony might be able to break through. His quinqueremes, with their thick hulls and large decks, were formidable opponents in direct combat. However, Agrippa's fleet soon demonstrated its tactical superiority. Octavian's ships, more maneuverable and faster, began to outflank Antony's slower vessels. Agrippa's crews used their agility to avoid direct ramming attacks and focused on disabling Antony's ships from a distance, using catapults and ballista to hurl stones, spears, and flaming projectiles. As the battle raged on, Cleopatra made a fateful decision. Fearing that the tide was turning against them, she ordered her Egyptian fleet to retreat. Her sudden withdrawal created chaos in Antony's ranks. Cleopatra's ships raised anchor and sailed away from the battle, leaving Antony's forces confused and demoralized. Seeing Cleopatra flee, many of Antony's sailors lost heart. Some ships attempted to follow her, while others simply ceased fighting, further further weakening Antony's already beleaguered fleet. Octavian's forces, sensing victory, pressed their advantage. Agrippa unleashed fire ships, vessels set ablaze and sent toward Antony's fleet. The burning ships caused panic and confusion among Antony's remaining vessels. Many of his ships were set on fire, while others were rammed and boarded by Octavian's marines. Antony, realizing that the battle was lost, abandoned his men and fled to follow Cleopatra, leaving his fleet to face the full brunt of Octavian's assault. In the ensuing chaos, Antony's fleet disintegrated. Of the 500 ships that had started the battle, around 300 were either captured or destroyed. Thousands of men either drowned, were killed in combat, or were captured. Antony's forces suffered heavy casualties, with estimates placing the number of dead and captured at over 5,000. Octavian, by contrast, suffered relatively few losses. His disciplined fleet, guided by Agrippa's brilliant strategy, had emerged victorious with only minor casualties. The Battle of Actium was not only a decisive military victory, but also a turning point in Roman history. With Antony and Cleopatra's forces shattered, the two fled to Alexandria, where they would meet their tragic end the following year, both committing suicide in 30 BC, bringing an end to the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt, and marking the final chapter of the Roman civil wars. Octavian, now undisputed master of Rome, returned to the city as a hero. In 27 BC, the Roman Senate granted him the title of Augustus, making him the first emperor of Rome. The Roman Republic was over, and the Roman Empire had begun. The significance of the Battle of Actium cannot be overstated. Octavian's victory ensured the consolidation of power in Rome under a single ruler, laying the foundation for a period of relative peace and stability known as the Pax Romana. Additionally, the annexation of Egypt provided Rome with vast wealth and resources, cementing its dominance over the Mediterranean world for centuries to come. Actium was more than just a naval battle, it was the turning point that would shape the future of Western civilization. So now you should all be very familiar with the Battle of Actium. So let's move on to our futuristic military force so you can understand the military and historical significance of these ships and their commander in this alternate history battle. To replace the fleet of Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, we draw from a future steeped in the technological prowess and naval dominance of the Napoleonic era, specifically the Italian fleets. This hypothetical naval force consists of 6 ships, 2 powerful ships of the line, and 4 versatile frigates, commanded by one of Italy's most distinguished naval figures from the period. With their advanced firepower, disciplined crews, and superior design, this fleet would present a significant shift in the dynamics of the battle. But to understand how they might influence the outcome, we must first break down exactly what these vessels bring to the fight. At the heart of this fleet are 2 imposing 74-gun ships of the line, the Vittorio and the San Giovanni. These warships represent the pinnacle of Napoleonic-era naval engineering. Measuring over 180 feet in length, each is built to withstand the brutal rigors of battle. These towering vessels can reach a top speed of around 10 to 12 knots, not exceptionally fast by later standards, but more than sufficient for forming a robust line of battle. The ships of the line are designed for sustained engagement, where broadside attacks, firing all the cannons on one side of the ship at once, could devastate opposing fleets. Both Vittorio and San Giovanni are armed with 74 cannons, ranging from the massive 24-pounder cannons on the lower decks to the lighter 12-pounders on the upper decks, and even the 6-pounders on the forecastle and the quarterdeck, the front and the back of the ship. The 24-pounders boast an effective range of about 1,000 to 1,500 yards, capable of smashing through the wooden hulls of any ship from Mark Antony's time with ease. The 12-pounders, slightly less powerful, have a range of 800 to 1,200 yards, while the 6-pounders can accurately hit targets at 500 to 800 yards. Each gun could fire roughly 1 round every 90 seconds, depending on the skill of a gun crew, making for a relentless barrage of cannon fire once engaged. Supporting these behemoths are 4 lighter but far faster frigates: the Leone, the Aquila, the Falco, and the Puma. These ships, each armed with between 32 and 36 guns, are designed for speed and maneuverability. Capable of reaching 14 to 16 knots, the frigates excel at outflanking enemy formations, scouting, and engaging smaller or damaged ships. The Leone and the Aquila, the larger frigates, are each armed with 18-pounder cannons on their main decks, providing them with an effective range of 800 to 1,200 yards, while their lighter 6-pounders can strike at ranges between 500 and 800 yards. Meanwhile, the smaller frigates, the Falco and the Puma, carry 12-pounder cannons that can reach 700 to 1,000 yards, providing them with versatility in combat. The fire rate of the frigates' guns, similar to their larger counterparts, allows for 1 shot approximately every minute to minute and a half, maintaining a continuous threat to the enemy. Each of these ships is a floating fortress, not just because of their weaponry, but because of the well-trained and heavily armed crews they carry. The Vittorio and the San Giovanni each carry a crew of between 600 and 700 men, including officers, gunners, marines, and sailors. The frigates, being smaller, have crews ranging from 250 to 350 men, depending on the ship. The crews are organized with discipline honed through years of service, trained to handle everything from firing cannons to engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Armed with boarding pikes, cutlasses, pistols, and muskets, the Marines aboard these ships are more than capable of boarding enemy vessels. In close-quarters combat, their cutlasses, short, heavy swords designed for slashing, are ideal for the confined spaces of ship decks, while pikes give them the reach and leverage when repelling or initiating a boarding action. The muskets they carry are effective at a range of 50 to 100 yards, with a rate of fire of around 3 rounds per minute, allowing them to lay down a steady stream of fire when enemy ships are close enough for direct combat. The crews of these ships would be armored in very minimal clothing, as was typical in the Napoleonic era. Most Marines would be equipped with leather helmets or caps, canvas jackets, and thick woolen uniforms, prioritizing mobility over heavy protection. While this leaves them vulnerable to close-range attacks, their primary defense is their ability to overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower and disciplined tactics. Unlike the soldiers of antiquity, these sailors and Marines are not relying on brute force or raw numbers, but on precision, coordination, and experience. Commanding this formidable fleet is Ammiraglio Francesco Caracciolo, one of the most skilled and experienced naval commanders of his time. Caracciolo, a veteran of numerous naval engagements, brings with him not only an intimate understanding of Napoleonic-era naval warfare, but also an adaptability that makes him a perfect fit for commanding this futuristic intervention in the ancient Battle of Actium. Caracciolo's leadership style is marked by tactical flexibility and an ability to exploit the weaknesses of his enemies, traits that would be essential in coordinating the actions of his two massive ships of the line and the nimble frigates. His command of the battlefield is further supported by his crew's professionalism and the organizational structure aboard these ships, where officers maintain strict discipline and oversee every aspect of ship operations, from gunnery to maneuvering. In terms of maneuverability, while the ships of the line are slower and less agile, they are designed to form the backbone of the fleet, creating a powerful and nearly impenetrable line of fire. The frigates, on the other hand, would be used to engage in more dynamic roles, acting as scouts, support vessels, and skirmishers, able to outmaneuver enemy ships and exploit gaps in their formations. This combination of heavy, durable warships and fast, agile frigates would present a multifaceted threat to any ancient fleet. In terms of firepower, the fleet's cannonry outmatches anything from the Roman era. The long-range effectiveness of the 24-pounders and 18-pounders means these ships could engage enemy vessels well before coming into range of the Roman war galleys, catapults, or ballista. The heavy cannons would tear through the wooden hulls of any Roman ship with ease, turning what would have been a dangerous engagement into a one-sided affair. If the ships are used effectively, the ammunition they carry includes round shot, designed to smash through enemy hulls, grape shot, a devastating anti-personnel load that turns a broadside into a shotgun blast against enemy crews, and chain shot, which is particularly effective at disabling sails and rigging, rendering enemy ships immobile. Together, this futuristic Napoleonic fleet boasts overwhelming advantages in terms of firepower, range, speed, and tactical flexibility. But as with any naval engagement, success will depend on the fleet's ability to adapt to an enemy that fights using entirely different tactics, and the ability of the crew to work seamlessly under the pressure of an ancient battlefield. If employed properly, this force could change the course of the Battle of Actium. But even with their advanced technology and training, there are always challenges in bringing modern strategies into the unknown waters of history. So now we are all aware of the actual historical events of the Battle of Actium, as well as the ships from the future that will be disrupting these events. Hopefully, I've explained all of this well enough for you, because now it's time for our troops to travel through time and engage in this history-shifting battle to determine the future leader of the Roman Empire. Let's dive on in. The sun rises over the Ionian Sea, casting a warm glow over the waters near Actium. The horizon is dotted with the looming shapes of Octavian's fleet. Hundreds of Roman ships gathered in tight formation, prepared to crush the forces of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. But instead of ancient Egyptian war galleys, Octavian's ships face something far more advanced. The sleek, imposing warships of the Napoleonic Italian fleet, their cannons gleaming in the morning light. At the head of the Italian force are two massive 74-gun ships of the line, the Vittorio and the San Giovanni, their decks swarming with disciplined crewmen preparing for battle. Flanking them are the swift and nimble frigates, the Leone, Aquila, Falco, and the Puma, the backbone of the Italian expeditionary fleet. Their commander, Ammiraglio Francesco Caracciolo, surveys the battlefield from the deck of Vittorio, watching as Octavian's Octavian's fleet slowly begins to move into position. The Romans, unaware of the destructive power arrayed against them, advance with confidence, their oars slicing through the calm waters. Caracciolo gives the order, and the Italian fleet begins to maneuver. The ships of the line hold their positions, slowly advancing to form a battle line, while the frigates dart ahead, moving into strategic positions to begin the engagement. The Italian ships' cannons, massive 24-pounders, are capable of engaging the Romans long before they can even come within range of their primitive catapults and ballista. The battle begins with a deafening roar as the first broadside from San Giovanni erupts. The salvo tears through the air, the 24-pound cannonballs slamming into the leading Roman quinquereme. The massive Roman vessel built for boarding actions and ramming never has a chance to close the distance. The cannonballs rip through its hull, splintering wood and sending Roman soldiers and sailors flying. The ship lists to one side, its oars snapping like twigs as it begins to sink. Vittorio fires next, her cannons answering with another devastating volley. A second Roman ship is torn apart before it can even fire a single shot. The Romans, realizing the range of the Italian guns, attempt to close the distance, their formation tightening as they surge forward, but they are outmatched in speed. The Italian frigates, Leone and Aquila, move in tandem, their guns blazing as they circle the edges of the Roman formation, picking off smaller Roman ships with precision. The faster quadriremes struggle to keep up, unable to match the Italians' maneuverability. Amid the chaos of battle, Octavian's fleet tries a desperate gambit. Two fireships, packed with pitch and flaming torches, are sent towards Falco, one of the Italian frigates. The Italian crew spots the danger too late. The frigate tries to veer off, its sails straining against the wind, but the fireships are too close. One fireship slams into Falco's side, setting the lower decks ablaze, while the second rams its bow, exploding in a shower of flames. The fire spreads rapidly, consuming the frigate in minutes. The crew, trapped by the inferno, have no choice but to abandon ship. Within moments, Falco is engulfed in flames, sinking beneath the waves. To the north, Puma fares no better. A lucky catapult shot from a Roman trireme crashes into the frigate's main mast, snapping it in two. The ship, crippled, begins to slow. Seizing the opportunity, several Roman vessels surround Puma. The Italian crew, armed with muskets and cutlasses, put up a fierce fight. From the deck, they rain musket fire on the approaching Roman ships, each shot deadly accurate. Roman sailors fall by the dozens, their attempts to board met with volleys of lead. But despite the Italians' firepower, the Romans press on. One quinquereme manages to pull alongside, its soldiers pouring onto the Puma's deck. The Italians fight back valiantly, their cutlasses slashing through the air, inflicting heavy casualties on the Romans. But the Italian sailors are no match for the sheer numbers of the Roman marines, who overwhelm the crew with their short swords and heavy shields. Soon, Puma is overrun. The Italian flag is torn down as Roman soldiers take control of the burning ship. But before they can celebrate, an explosive blast rocks the ship. The Italians had spiked the gunpowder stores in a final act of defiance. Puma sinks beneath the waves, taking its Roman captors with it. Back at the center of the battle, Vittorio and San Giovanni continue to hold the line, their massive guns firing with terrifying precision. Roman ships attempting to ram the Italian ships of the line find themselves cut down before they can even get close. But one determined quinquereme, its bow reinforced for ramming, manages to close the distance with Vittorio. The Roman ship crashes into the side of the Italian warship with a sickening crunch, its ram digging deep into the hull. Yet the reinforced hull of the ship of the line holds. The ram doesn't penetrate deeply enough to do any real damage. Roman soldiers swarm up the sides of Vittorio, attempting to board, but they are met with a wall of musket fire. The Italian marines line the deck, their rifles aimed at the Roman soldiers, struggling to climb the sides of the ship. One by one, the Romans fall, shot as they attempt to board. Before a single Roman foot touches the deck, they are all cut down. The crew of Vittorio reloads their cannons, firing another devastating broadside into the heart of Octavian's fleet, tearing apart another Roman ship in a shower of wood and blood. As the hours drag on, the battle begins to wind down. San Giovanni fires a final salvo, sinking the last Roman quinquereme still afloat. The sea is littered with the shattered remains of Octavian's once formidable fleet. Bodies and wreckage bob in the water, the survivors clinging to the wreckage of their destroyed ships. Octavian's forces have been utterly annihilated. Not a single Roman ship remains afloat. Of the Italian fleet, fleet, Vittorio and San Giovanni stand tall, their hulls scarred but intact. Leone and Aquila, though damaged, remain seaworthy, their crews already making repairs. The cost of the victory has been high. 2 frigates, the Falco and the Puma, lie at the bottom of the sea, their crews either dead or captured. Yet the Italians have won the day through superior tactics, overwhelming firepower, and sheer discipline. Ammiraglio Caracciolo surveys the battlefield from the deck of Vittorio, his expression grim but resolute. The Romans never stood a chance. The future had come to Actium, and with it, the ancient world had been swept away in a hail of cannon fire. The annihilation of Octavian's fleet at the Battle of Actium, with every Roman ship destroyed and his forces either dead or captured, drastically alters the course of history. With no military opposition left, Mark Antony and Cleopatra emerge victorious, their path to power uncontested. The Italian naval force, having delivered a decisive victory, quietly returns to their own time, leaving Antony and Cleopatra to claim the spoils of war. With Octavian gone, Antony quickly consolidates power. He marches triumphantly into Rome, supported by Cleopatra and her vast wealth. The Roman Senate, having lost any hope of opposing Antony, declares him imperator. Unlike the real events, where Octavian becomes the first emperor and initiated the Pax Romana, it is Antony who now assumes the role of Rome's first emperor, restructuring the empire to center around himself and his Egyptian queen. This victory reshapes the Roman Empire's future. Egypt, now the dominant force in the Mediterranean under Cleopatra's rule, influences Roman politics and culture far more than it ever would have. Cleopatra's influence secures a stronger connection between Rome and Egypt, potentially merging the two into a superstate. The empire's new direction is far less traditional, drawing upon Egyptian customs and wealth to fuel its expansion. Historically, Octavian's rise marked the beginning of the Roman Empire's golden age, but with Antony on the throne, this new empire follows a different path, one where Cleopatra's Egypt plays a pivotal role in shaping its future. But that's just what I think would happen. Let me know if you feel differently. Do you think I overestimate the abilities of the modern Italian cannons to decimate the primitive Roman vessels? Or do you think I underestimate the Romans' abilities to close the gap and force a melee fight? Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video and haven't yet seen the others in this series, I invite you to check them out, as a playlist of them will be linked in the description. If you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know that as well. And lastly, if you enjoyed this video for any reason at all, let me know by liking the video and subscribing, and maybe even sharing it with a friend. But in any case, thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you on the next battlefield.